भक्तिसिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glory to the ultimate. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to today morning's class. We have Prabhupada Charan Prabhu joining us today. He's been in ISKCON since 1983, actually, and his first contact with ISKCON, with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, actually came from 1969. Is everything okay in the temple room? So yeah, just a bit more about Prabhu. So he's actually been traveling all around the world. Actually, he's stayed in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and currently he's residing in Nottingham in the UK. He's distributed books for 25 years, and I'm sure we've got a lot of nectar that we can extract from Prabhu today, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I will hand over to Prabhupada Charan Prabhu. So Prabhu, you're on mute.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting us. So we're reading today from Bhagavatam, second chapter, second canto, first chapter, verse 7, first steps in God realization. So I'll just read through the Sanskrit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prayana Muniya Rajan. Nivrita Vijay Seditaha Nigunya Sta Ramate Sma Guna Kanteke Hare. So word for word. Prayana mainly. Munaya all the sages. Rajan, O king. Nivrita above. Viti regulative principles. Seditaha from restrictions. Nigunya Stara transcendentally situated, ramate, taking pleasure in, sma, distinctly, guna, anukante, describing the glorious Hare of the Lord. So, let me just get to this. Translation, Srila Prabhupada. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The topmost transcendentalist is a liberated soul and is therefore not within the purview of the regulative principles. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Generally, liberated souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. As mentioned above, since Narayan, Hari, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. The topmost transcendentalist or liberated souls realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities. Transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are all divyam, or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy takes it for granted that the Lord is like one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental nature of the Lord's form, name, etc. The topmost transcendentalist is not interested in anything material, and his taking interest in the matter of the Lord's activities is definite proof that the Lord is not like one of us in the material world. In the Vedic literatures also, it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is one, but that he is engaged in transcendental activities, pastimes, in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and that simultaneously he is present as a supersoul, an expansion of Baladev, in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, the highest perfection of transcendental realization is to take pleasure in hearing and describing the transcendental activities of the Lord, and not in merging into his impersonal Brahman existence, for which the impersonalist monist aspires. Real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of the transcendental Lord, and not in the feeling of being situated in his impersonal feature. But there are also others who are not the topmost transcendentalists, but are in a lower status, and who do not take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Rather, they discuss activities of the Lord formally with the aim of merging into his existence. Magyana timirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshuan malitanjana tasmai shri gurave namaha. So it's quite an amazing scene. We have Maharaj Parikshit, who's just decided. Sorry, we just had a telephone call. Apologies. So Maharaj Parikshit has just been cursed by the Brahmin boy, and he's decided just to give up his kingdom, walks to the banks of the Ganga, and everyone hears about this. All the sages gather from his empire. Also, the sages gather from other planets. Narad Muni is there. Shri Vyasadev's there. Even Parashuram, Lord Parashuram's there. All sitting there, waiting to find out what happens. So they're all gathered around. It's quite an amazing scene. And then Maharaj Parikshit says, beginning of the second canto, he says, "I'm about to die. What am I going to do? What shall I do? Can I get the picture back of the devotees? I can't work it out at this end. I had it just a second ago. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself. I guess Prabhupada said you can. There we go. Thank you so much. So then he says, what am I going to do? I've got 7 days left to live. So just at that time, as we know, Sukadeva Goswami appears, 16-year-old boy, completely naked, sits down, and he starts to speak to Parikshit to explain what to do. So one of the first things, actually, in verse 4 of this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami, he talks about Atma-tattvam. You have to understand yourself. So sometimes when we engage in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, it's also a process of Atma-tattvam. It's also a process of self-realization. So we have to understand ourselves as parts and parcel of Krishna. So this process is described, as you know, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhura Kadambini, and in detail. And of course, Prabhupada mentions many times Adoshrada, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, etc. Anath and Vritti, Shra, Nishta, etc. like that. So we have to become conscious of our own situation in our own heart and mind, where we're situated, in order to progress towards Krishna. Just like taking a journey, if we take a journey, say, from here to Rome, and then we know we need to go, you're in London, so you need to go to the East Coast, take a ferry, or take, the Eurostar, get to Paris, then go further east. But if you're starting in Istanbul, then you have to go west towards Greece. And then, so we really need to know where we're situated as individuals in order to go to Krishna. So this process of Atma-tattvam that's described in this chapter is primary in our quest to be Krishna conscious. So in order to understand where we're situated, we have to look into our heart. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 42, in the purport, Prabhupada says, in order to just defeat our enemy, which are, our anathas and our attachments, lust, anger, greed, etc. We need to recognize where the enemy is situated. So we need to find out where we are in terms of our attachments and in terms of our mentality and our attitude towards life, towards Krishna, towards ourselves. So this process of self-realization is sometimes overlooked by the Vaishnavas, by the aspirant Vaishnavas. But actually, this is our process. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in Madhur Kandamani that unless we, in fact, I've got the quote here, I made a note, it's very interesting. Quote from Madhur Kandamani. At the stage when anathas still persist in the heart, the devotee may try to, as hard as possible, to counteract them by devotional activities, yet these anathas remain. So, there's 5 anathas mentioned by Vishwanath in different categories. One of them is kasaya, is defined as a tendency to display such faults as anger, greed, arrogance during devotional activities. So how do we get rid of these activities, these anathas, this attitude, when as described by Vishwanath here, we perform many devotional activities, but we're still not getting free of our attachments. So we may perform devotional service for many years and still have these attachments in our heart. And of course, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a rowing boat that the wedding party. So they row all night, but the anchor's in. So that although they're working very hard, like for instance, with us, we're chanting very hard, we're distributing lots of books, we're cleaning the pots, we're doing so many devotional activities. But if the anchor is in, then we actually don't go anywhere. So this anchor is our material attachments and our anathas. So unless we deal with these anathas, we won't get to the next stage, which is, nishta. And then from there, we get a taste. And so we can get an idea and we can get a taste by our devotional practices, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Srimati Radharani. But to be on the platform of steadiness, the actual platform to be fixed, we actually have to be free of attachments and anathas. So how do we get rid of these attachments and anathas if we can't get rid of them by devotional activities, as Vishwanath Chakravarti here explains? At this stage, when anathas still persist in the heart, the devotee may try as hard as possible to counteract them by devotional activities, yet these attachments remain. Is it possible to open up to questions? If anyone has a comment, how they think we can get rid of these attachments in the heart? Is that possible, technically, with Zoom?
Yeah, we can, if anybody from the temple room.
Yeah, anyone in the temple room has an idea. If we can't get free of our attachments by devotional activities, how do we get free of our attachments? It's a trick question, I must admit, but it's interesting. Does anyone have a comment? If they don't worry, but if you have a comment, please fire in.
I think Srinivas Prabhu has.
Srinivas Prabhu, Hari Bol Ji.
You serve those who are free from material attachments. You serve those who are free from material attachments.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, that's one method. Anyone else with anything? Hare Krishna, Brahma.
Hare Krishna, speaking. One way I seem to, because I'm later in life, I seem to learn by mistakes. Oh, okay. I seem to learn by mistakes.
By mistake, nice.
Yeah, very painful. But the experience, it is, I'm supposed to learn by mistakes, but it seems to me, as Mataji said in yesterday's class, they do repeat themselves until somehow or other that we learn that we're not in control, and that we really have to, as Srinivas said, be in the association of devotees, that's for certain, because they let you know your problem. And this is the wonderful bonus of association for your devotees. And consequently, it's pain and the association of devotees that also help you with your mistaken ideas and things like that, and this false ego that tries to control everything, and also an uncontrolled tongue, which I can't. I'm a bit addicted to food stuff, so prasadam. So I have a lot of things to come through in myself, I know, but it's association with devotees and realizing my mistakes and actually taking it on board that I'm not so clever. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, bro. Thank you so much.
So is that the question?
Yeah, I opened it up as a question too. So yes, thank you, Prabhus. Yeah. So I think they're both valid comments and recommendations. What I wanted to focus on was that. Oh, we have another person now? No. So was that, you know, if it says that we can't perform we can't overcome our attachments by devotional activities, then serving devotees, looking at taking association devotees, this is all devotional activities. So someone posted something, I think it was someone called Aina. She posted that we have to deal with our traumas and our attachments and our conflicts and our attitude. So who can do that? That's something that we have to do in the association of devotees. But we have to look into our own heart and see, what is it? Like, for instance, give an example, greed. So if, for instance, we're a businessman and we like to make money, like to make Lakshmi. So we can spend our life making Lakshmi, and then of course at the time of death everything's taken away, and we may have 50 billion pounds in the bank, but it's pretty useless. So greed can be understood by ourselves that I need a certain amount of Lakshmi to live. You know, if I'm living in the ashram, I really don't need any. If I'm living outside, how much money do I need? And then we can regulate our lives in such a way that we spend enough time and energy to make enough Lakshmi we need, but we don't have to make more than what we need. So basically we try to use our intelligence to work out a plan how to live our life where we're not being controlled by greed. So it's by introspection and by intelligence that we actually work out, what do I need in terms of my financial needs, my emotional needs, my physical needs, my mental needs, my intellectual needs, and we find a balance in our life to live in a way that's balanced and that's progressive towards Krishna. And if we don't do that, if we just blindly follow something without using our intelligence, then, as Prabhupada says, blind following and ridiculous questioning, neither of these things will bring us to a point of atmatattva. So this process of devotional service is a process of self-realization. So unless we can really analyze and find out exactly where we're situated as individuals, and each individual is situated differently, everyone is situated, and we're all unique, we're all different individuals. But to understand where we're situated is the primary task that we need to find out. Like that example earlier, where we are now is the foundation of where we're going. If we're trying to push to a platform, if we're thinking that we're on a platform that's higher or lower than where we're at, and that Krishna's ultimately the goal, then we won't be able to head towards Krishna, because we'll be constantly pulled back to where we're situated. So we first have to find out where we're situated and then make progressive steps and plans towards Krishna. So that requires introspection and intelligence. It's not blind following. It's not a non-philosophical, just passionate activities. It's using the intelligence. In that Bhagavad Gita, it says in chapter 8, verse 7, with intelligence fixed on me. So we have to use our intelligence to find out where we're situated, where our individual conflicts, attachments are, anarthas are. And first of all, we have to come out of any denial that we might be in. We might be denying the fact that we have attachments because, socially within the association of devotees, we don't like to admit that we're attached to this or attached to that. So the first phase of anartha nivritti is to come out of denial, that we don't deny that we have attachments. And then the next step is to make a plan how to overcome that. And that requires introspection and intelligence. So sometimes, as we know, devotional services can be performed in 3 modes: ignorance, passion, and goodness. So if we neglect where we're situated, then that's a mode of ignorance. So we're neglecting our position as individuals. So the idea is that we see where we're at first, we come out of denial, and then we make a progressive plan towards rectifying our attachment and our attachment and our activities in terms of our progression on our path of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is he thinks in terms of we. He doesn't think in terms of I. So this controllership that we have in the material world, where we consider ourselves the enjoyer, Ishvara Ham Bhogi Siddham Balavan Sukhi. We consider ourselves the controller and the enjoyer. We have to recognize that in our own heart. It isn't a philosophical statement for someone else, but it's actually something that we see on our own daily activities or attitudes, that we're thinking about my enjoyment, my happiness, my comfort, my position, my finances, my relationships. So if we think in terms of Jamasmi Hamameti, if we think in terms of our own situation, then our attitude isn't one of service. Our attitude is one of controlling and enjoying. So how to change the attitude from being a controller into trying to be a servant is a process of self-realization. So that attitude change is fundamental, because we came into the material world because we wanted to be Krishna. We wanted to enjoy like Krishna. So we think sometimes that we don't have that tendency anymore because we shaved our head and we put on tilak and a dhoti. But actually, we do have that tendency to a large degree left in our heart. And unless we change that attitude to becoming, introspective, to becoming a servant, then that mentality that we have will never change unless we become conscious of it. And we use our intelligence to work out, how do I try to change my attitude from this controller into being the servant? And that really requires to utilize our intelligence to realize that if I engage in activities where I'm trying to enjoy and control, it's actually going to lead to my suffering. Although immediately it seems appealing, it seems to be fun, but actually it's going to lead to my own demise and to my own suffering. But if I try to serve others and I try to help others and I try to support others, then that's actually going to bring me the happiness, because I'm in a situation where I'm the servant and I'm trying to help others. So intelligence and our philosophy, and Prabhupada, of course, as we all know, he got up very, very early in the morning and he translated these books. And it wasn't for his purification. It was to inform us, to give us the philosophy by which we can actually engage in this atma-tattva, engage in this self-realization. So the first step really is to come out of denial that we are the controllers and the enjoyers, which of course we're not, but really analyze in our own heart, what is it that I can do? What can I do to change my mentality from being the controller and the joy into becoming the servant, into becoming the servant of others, and becoming the supporter of others, to becoming the helper of others. So we can, like devotees were explaining, like we can make mistakes. And of course, experience comes from making mistakes. and you gain experience by mistakes. So mistakes are good. Mistakes are there for us to learn. So that is every activity we perform, mistake or not mistake, is there for us to learn about ourselves. And also to be in the association of devotees is very important, because devotees can help us. So understanding our own nature and how to progress towards Krishna requires the association of others. Rupa Goswami explains, Guya Makriti Prichati, that only by the association of others can we actually make advancement, by revealing our mind in confidence, confidential inquiry, giving and receiving prasadam, giving and receiving gifts. Of course, the most important is revealing our mind in confidence and confidential inquiry. So we can't see ourselves. If we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see our physical form, but we actually can't see ourselves. No one can see themselves. So how do we engage in the science of self-realization when we can't see ourselves? So like the devotee was explaining, we need the association of others. So to build that association requires two fundamental points, which sometimes we don't really focus on. It requires confidentiality, as is explained in that verse, and also non-judgmental. So if you go to someone and you say, Prabhu, I'm having a really hard time, I'm finding this really difficult, I feel really nervous in this situation, I'm really struggling in this area. And then that devotee goes to another group of devotees and says, oh, such and such is really a case, he's really struggling with this, he's really out of it, he's really in Maya. Then you're not going to go back to that person because the person's not been confidential. Or if you've gone to someone and they judge you and you say, Prabhu, you're such a Kali Yuga specimen, you're such a malecha, then you're going to be judged. You're not going to go back to that person. So it's actually incumbent on us as individuals to seek out the association of those devotees who will provide confidentiality and non-judgmental hearing and build a relationship. It's not a 2-minute thing, but it's not everyone else's responsibility. It's our responsibility. So we have to try to approach and build relationships over years, over an extended period, which are based on non-judgmental hearing and on confidentiality. And then that person can help us in our devotional service and we can help them. So this association of devotees is really based on these two points, confidentiality and non-judgmental hearing. And if we don't do that, then we'll never have a partner in life that can help us in our self-realization. We do need that. Prabhupada says in the purport of that sloka in fourth verse in Upadeshamrita, that this is essential, this having someone else to help us in devotional service. And of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya says, association is more important is the most important element of devotional service. On one letter to Yogeshwar, he was saying to Prabhupada how it's so nice to have association with his godbrothers, and Prabhupada wrote back, said, association is more important than chanting. Our principle is chanting Hare Krishna, it's a Yuga Dharma, but more important than that is association. Because by that association, we'll keep chanting. But if we chant on our own, we won't keep we won't keep chanting. So this association, building up loving relationships, building up relationships based on confidentiality and non-judgmental hearing and sharing, this is the fundamental need for self-realization, for Atma-tattvam. Otherwise, we can't do it on our own. We can't see ourselves. It's just impossible. So for the conditioned soul, we need the help of others to see ourselves. And this area of anatta nivritti, then we can't overcome it ourselves. We need the help of others, and we need to use our intelligence, and we need to be introspective. So this is a very, how would you say, important principle in devotional service, this association of devotees and of using our intelligence to introspect and find out where we're actually situated and how to actually make a plan to overcome our attachments. Because you can't get free of attachments when you chant with attachments. So you only get free of attachments when you chant without attachments, but you can't get free of attachments unless you sit down and be introspective and use your intelligence to actually plan your way away from these attachments and anarthas. So I'd like to open up for questions now. Is that okay?
That's fine. I don't know. Just before we go to questions, just wanted to summarize the key points, because I think this was a really, really nice class around the whole mood of how we as individuals should develop our attitude in terms of introspection and really going deeper, because oftentimes, at least myself, when I read through Prabhupada's books, I'm finding that in various places he talks about how chanting is everything. Chanting gives us everything. We don't need to try and endeavor for anything else separately. But here you're talking about how actually it's not just chanting, it's chanting without those attachments. It's chanting without committing any of those offenses that actually lets us get to a stage whereby chanting gives us everything without the extra endeavors. So I really like that point. So thank you for that. I did actually have one question as somebody else from the temple room, or anybody online who has questions first. Okay, so my question then there is just trying to rectify that sort of misunderstanding that Srila Prabhupada has given us around chanting giving us everything. Like if somebody comes up to us, or if we ourselves start thinking or questioning that whole aspect around chanting being everything that we need, how do you actually balance that idea of we just need to chant versus we actually need to introspect? Like when do we understand which needs to be done when?
Yeah, there has to be a balance. Thank you so much for the question. That's a general misconception. Yeah, of course, Bhaktivedanta says nothing else in the 14 worlds except the holy name. So therefore, just have to chant, nothing else. But we see, that we have to balance it with introspection and intelligence. I have another comment. You have a comment? No. So yes, there is nothing else in the 14 worlds except the holy name. But that's when we're chanting Sudanam. But to get to Sudanam, we actually have to purify ourselves and we have to introspect. It's described that in the Jivadharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that you by chanting Namaparad, you really don't get anywhere. So they recommend when you're chanting Namaparad, just to keep chanting. But when you enter Namabas, then you start making. It's like they give an example of a candle in a room. You have a tiny candle in a huge room, then the whole room lights up. But to get to Namabas means we actually have to start getting rid of our attachments, which means we need to introspect. We need to see where we're situated. We need to change our attitude in our chanting from being the controller. It's like I know a lot of devotees, they're chanting, I'm going to chant really good today so I can distribute lots of books. I'm going to chant really good today so I can free myself from this mental anxiety. So it's not in the mood of service. It's in the mood of what Krishna can bring me. I'm Krishna, and I'm going to use Krishna to bring me. I'm the control and enjoy. I'm going to use Krishna to bring me control and enjoy. I'm going to enjoy this chanting, and I'm going to get the Shakti, and I'm going to do I'm going to be a big preacher. I'm going to do so many things. So that's not in the attitude of service. That's in the attitude of Ishvara Bhav. So if we chant in that mood, it's like rowing with the anchor in again. We can chant, a lakh of rounds every day, but if we're in the wrong mood, we're actually endeavoring, we're rowing, we really are rowing hard, but the anchor's in, we're not getting anywhere. So there has to be a balance. We don't give up the chanting for introspection, but the idea of the chanting, actually the reason we chant Hare Krishna, our attachments up like the ghee, we're boiling the ghee to bring the impurities up. So the impurities come up, then what do? Freak out, run away, stop chanting? No, we carry on with the chanting, the impurities, and we're supposed to deal with the impurities. We're supposed to deal with the problems. Oh, look at this, I'm so lusty, I'm so greedy, I'm so envious, I'm so angry. Anger is a good one for me. I'm so angry. So what do I do with this? Then I have to sit down and work out, well, this is a problem. What do I do? Make a plan. Have to change my attitude in some way. Like if you're in anger and you chant in anger, wow, you can really get really angry. You can empower your anger tremendously. You can empower your attachments. Like, the example with the creeper. We're watering the weeds if we're chanting with attachment. We're watering, and so all the weeds come up and the devotional creeper gets overcome. And we find ourselves becoming more Ishvara Bhav, more wanting to be the controller and the enjoyer, or wanting to be the boss, or wanting to be something. So the chanting brings up the attachments, and then we're supposed to deal with the attachments. So there's a balance between, you don't give up the Yuga Dharma, chanting the holy names of the Lord, for introspection, but you don't negate introspection just to chant, because the process is Atma Tattvam. It's self-realization. Jai Radha Gokulananda Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman Ki Jai. So there has to be a balance, but we have a tendency as devotees just to put all the emphasis on chanting and no introspection. So that's devotional service in the mode of ignorance, because we're ignoring introspection. So that ignorance doesn't bring prema. We can't get to prema unless we go through enough in the vritti. So we need to find a balance between chanting the holy names and trying to chant nicely, try and chant without motive. So we have to look at our motives. We have to work on ourselves. We have to introspect. And we need other people to do that, because we don't see ourselves. We need other people's advice. I have another question from Chandramukhi. Comment.
It's more like a comment. In today's world, sometimes as devotees, we look at this a process of introspection as some kind of new age approach. But from where I'm seeing, that is not the case, because Rupa Goswami is actually explaining the 6 loving exchanges amongst devotees. Why is this important? Because we are actually learning how to love, and not only how to love Krishna. You see, sometimes as a concept, we have that in the temple, everything is about Krishna. So we behave as Krishna is some kind of person who wants everything for himself. But Krishna is a person who actually wants everything good for us. That's why he actually never leaves us in this material world. He's always there, no matter what we do in the form of Paramatma. But coming back to the point, what I was trying to make is that this Rupa Goswami is actually teaching us how to exchange this love. So that's why this confidential inquiry and revealing in my mind in confidence are super important practice of learning how to love myself and how to love, understand my relationship with other devotees and my relationship with Krishna. So these points are super important to keep in mind, because otherwise we can go into all kind of esoteric topics and not understand how to practice these topics in our life. So yeah, there is a big and important aspect there, and learning how to actually relate to others, it's important aspect. So coming back to original point, which sometimes we hear devotees say that this so-called counseling and this new kind of age processes are not related directly to devotional practice. I will have to disagree, not because I disagree, because Rupa Goswami is actually giving us those processes himself. So basically, when he talks about revealing your mind in confidence and confidential inquiry, that's basic principles of any counseling you will ever have. But the interesting aspect is there that it's important to be amongst devotees, because on top of this being non-judgmental and being able to be confidential, devotees have another asset at his disposal, and this is his knowledge about what Krishna has given us through the books of previous acharyas and Srila Prabhupada. So this is the essential aspect, which in together with chanting, it's actually called the process of self-realization. one friend of ours says that sometimes as a practitioners, we want a realization, but we completely neglect the self. So coming back to another point, which I made previously, that, in the temple, we think everything is about Krishna, but actually everything is about relationship, because bhakti is relationship.
Yeah, also, shastrically, the beginner devotee, he worships Krishna very nicely in the temple, and then there's the second stage is to make friends with devotees. So, and that expression, of course, in English, you can't love what you can't see if you don't love what you can see. So developing relationship with devotees is the second stage, and is something that we should all be trying to do as much as possible, because that brings us out of this beginner stage. So it's definitely according to our philosophy to develop friendships with devotees. Sometimes devotees say, material world, don't get attached to anyone because it's all temporary, but actually we're supposed to become attached to devotees, like the devotee was explaining earlier. We're supposed to get attached to devotees, and that's a devotional practice. That's the Madhyam platform. So developing relationships is something we're supposed to be working on, supposed to be trying to do, and that's something we're a positive action that we're supposed to be doing, not just worshipping Krishna, but actually developing relationships with each other. Very important. Thank you so much for questions. Anything else from anyone, please? Comments, corrections, challenges, criticisms, chastisements?
I think we have a question for Virgin Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
It seems to be a remedy in here in this purport where it says is the taking interest in the matter of the Lord's activities is definitely proof that the Lord is not like one of us. And it says it's confirmed. But so he says he's engaged in transcendental pastimes in the company of alloyed and unalloyed devotees. So actually, I'd like your comment on that, because this certainly absorption in hearing the pastimes and glorifying the pastimes is another solution. It's like when you read Prabhupada's books, you're in another world when you hear Krishna's pastimes. We're studying about Vitrasura at the moment. It's just so enlivening and absorbing, and I stopped thinking about myself, which is what we've been introspection on the thing. But it's another one that actually, when we get absorbed in these pastimes, that they take you out of yourself, and is it too much introspection?
Oh, thank you for the question. Now, did you finish? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. Okay. No, but that's it really. They're so absorbing. I forget myself, if you get what I mean, and my problems and so-called introspection. I just become absorbed in that. So any comments on that part of the purport?
Yeah, I thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, so that's definitely our process, to absorb ourselves in the pastimes of the Lord with unalloyed devotees.
But what are the pastimes?
So, yeah, what are the pastimes? How do you mean, what are the pastimes?
But pastimes are relationship.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You don't see Krishna sitting on the bank of Jamuna and just sitting there. Every pastime, especially with Vritrasura, you have a relationship. And with Vritrasura, it's so interesting because he's so in such a interesting situation in life, that he wants to take away everything from everybody. He actually just wants to steal everything from everybody. But what Krishna does, he actually, despite his tendencies of this miserly mentality where he just as the wind takes everything away, Krishna still has a lot of compassion, and he gives him. So it's even in a negative state of relationship with Krishna is there to emphasize the positive. So in every pastime, there is a relationship, which is the most important. And we somehow or other tend to overlook that.
Yeah, I just listened to Prabhupada give a talk on this exact verse. And Prabhupada says that we can't jump to the Paramahansa. You know, we can't jump to just being absorbed in about Krishna. We need others. We need to go on this process. So yes, the process is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, but we need help. We can't jump to the Paramahansa stage. So, you know, this whole thing we're talking about in the class of getting people to help us understanding our attachment to Nath is, we can't jump to the Krishna Prema. We actually do have to go through that Shraddha, Bhajana, Kriya, Nath, Nritti, Nishta, etc. And we need the help of others to do it. But that doesn't mean to say that by hearing the pastimes of the Lord is bad. It's part of the process, but the process is also self-realization.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, we have one here.
Yeah, I have a question. So what Bhaktivedanta Thakur is saying, what is the biggest offense in life?
Bhaktivedanta Thakur explains in Jaiva Dharma, it said the biggest offense, because a lot of devotees, we talk about, you know, this, you know, you offended me and you shouldn't offend devotees, which of course is the mad elephant offense. But actually, Bhaktivedanta Thakur says the worst offense we can perform is to think that we're the controllers and the enjoyers. Because that's the offense that brought us to the material world. That's the offense that's holding us in the material world.
So just a question off that then, like how can we overcome that sort of mindset and attitude? How can we dovetail it to actually see that we're not the controllers?
I don't know. I'm still trying. Yeah, because we can see we're tiny, you know, but we can see, you know, sometimes, what do? I regularly do. Yeah, I put myself before everyone else. I'm not thinking about what someone else wants. I'm thinking about what, if I meet someone, I think, we have another question coming up through. So I think when I meet someone, I think, oh, what can I use this person for? Can this person be fun to be with socially? Can this person facilitate me in some way? I'm not thinking, how can I help this person? What can I do to encourage, inspire this person in anything they do, you know, financially, emotionally, spiritually, bring them closer to something, to help them in some way. I'm not focused when I meet someone like that. I'm focused on more, how can I enjoy with them? How can I have fun with them? So you can see in your own heart. We used to give this example. There was one little seminar we did, and the example was given that if I was a temple president I was a manager for a couple of years in Scotland, and when someone came to the temple, I was thinking, great, another book distributor. Someone can clean the pots, someone can make the garlands, someone can maybe be a pujari. But I'm sure for a pure devotee, when someone comes to the temple, they're thinking, oh, how can I reestablish this person's connection to Krishna? How can I help this person? How can I serve this person to become enlivened? Like Prabhupada said, management means the ability to inspire the volunteering spirit. So am I in a mood where I'm just trying to encourage everyone's volunteering spirit? I'm just trying to help everyone get fired up about Krishna. I'm thinking, well, you know, this guy could be fun to be with. We can maybe go out and do some books together and it'll be fun. And you know, I'm not thinking about how I can serve someone. I'm thinking about how I can have fun with someone. So we can see in our own hearts, it may not be 100% that I want to enjoy with someone, but maybe 70%, maybe 30%, whatever percentage it is, that's the thing we can recognize in our own heart and say, let's try and get rid of this more and try and get more into the mood of actually trying to help someone and trying to encourage someone and inspire someone. So but we have to look in our own hearts for that, and having other people to bounce it off and say this and discuss with is helpful, this association of devotees.
That's actually really helpful. actually seeing how we can help others as opposed to get our stuff completed. So the question, just to read out for everybody else on chat from Enna's iPhone, is process of introspection. How does that look?
How does the process of introspection look? Again, I don't know. From my side, what I try to do is I try to look. Actually, what happens with me, someone points out to me, why did you do that? Why are you so angry? Why are you so upset? And then I think, oh, why am I? And then I analyze, and then with that person, I sit down and analyze, well, why is it I'm so disturbed by that? Why am I so why does that create such an impact in me? And then I sit down and I try and discuss with that person and find out what the causes are. It's actually, they call it, it's this, we have a conditioning, we could say, in Krishna consciousness. So we have conditioning from obviously from previous lifetimes and in this lifetime as well. So that conditioning is, we're not aware of, it's like in a subconscious level. So when we bring that conditioning to the conscious level, we can make a decision. Do I want to be angry when anyone says, I don't know, you have to do this? And then immediately my ego goes, I have to do it? No, I don't have to do it. I have a choice. So why do I get so upset about that? So bring that unconscious conditioning to the conscious platform and discuss it and make a plan. Why is it and how? It's not just why, but how do I get rid of that? How do I overcome that? And we had a comment from Chandra.
It starts with stopping being falsely humble. So when I meet devotees, I don't go, oh, Prabhu, oh, I actually, I am here looking for genuine exchange. I'm here because I want to know what you think of me. I want to know what am I doing wrong. So opening myself up to this relationship with an open heart, and then expecting confidentiality and non-judgmental hearing, and if possible, shastric advice about, how shall I progress in my own, against my own anarthas and attachments. So it starts with actually genuine friendship. And we see so many devotees practice devotional service and isolate, almost encapsulate themselves in some kind of practice balloon, and be totally isolated in this practice. But as far as I understand, that it's actually not even our philosophy, because Mayavadi impersonalist philosophy starts with neti, neti, neti. And then devotional practices start with this and this and this. And one of the things to do is to actually develop relationship with other fellow devotees. But this relationship, it cannot be false. As any relationship, it requires time. So sometimes as a practitioners, we have no time. We eat prasadam with devotees, we sing kirtan with devotees, we chant shoulder to shoulder with devotees. But I'm speaking from practical experience, living for 10 years in Mayapur, not even knowing the legal names of devotees. What to speak about actually knowing who they are, what their lives look like. We go to Mangala and, we think this is association. But actually association requires intimacy. So bhakti is not process which we practice in isolation alone.
Yeah, this is a point, that Bhakti Yoga is all about relationships. So if we're not developing relationships with our fellow Vaishnavas, practitioners, then how can we have a relationship with Krishna? We have to make a conscious effort to develop these relationships.
Thank you. That's a really nice point, making conscious effort. And I'd probably go a step further just based on what Matthew mentioned, where we have to develop genuine relationships, not just developing relationships the way we want them to work. Look at introspect, just going back to the whole thing, introspect on how we actually are today and develop that relationship based on that with the goal in mind of how we want to change.
Yeah, it's like some people in a relationship, they'll look for people that will just say yes to them, you know. So then you just get everyone saying, you know, you say to them, I'm not that bad, am I? And they say, no, you're not that bad. I'm good at this, aren't I? Yeah, I'm good at that. But so genuine relationships are really are definitely needed. We have to try and look for them. And it's difficult, it's painful to look at our attachments and anarthas and face the truth. But Krishna's the ultimate truth. Krishna's the summum bonum truth. So if we don't live in truth, we're not going to get the truth. We're not going to get Krishna. So we have to be truthful ourselves in order to get the absolute truth, Krishna. But relationships are super, super important. And if we don't have them, then we don't have help. And we need help. You know, we didn't come as Shakti-Vaisha avatars to this material world to preach to everyone. We're trying to develop our affection for Krishna, and we really need help.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. So it's 8:30. Well, it's just past 8:35 now. So I think we can close. So thank you for the amazing session, Prabhupada Jaran Prabhu. If we can just have like 3 loud Haribols for His Grace, Prabhupada Jaran Prabhu. Haribol!
Haribol.
Haribol! Haribol!
Jai Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, thank you.